Sleazy Josh, it's dark in here. Come on. Are we shooting? Are you not funny? Turn the lights on. I'm serious. This is not cool. Oh! Welcome to Evil NerdKO. Hey everyone, now that we got rid of those chumps.
I feel so vulnerable right now. This is awful.
I don't know, I kind of like it.
Oh! No, I'm not gonna be tied up next to you then. I'm going over here.
Welcome to Evil NerdKO, and it's just the right time because here we are for Halloween, talking about some great Halloween subject matter.
Yep, start things off, we're gonna talk about some of our scariest games.
Games that we thought were just really good, scary, creepy. You can play them for the holiday and enjoy them. Then we're going to jump into some great Halloween flicks, movies, spooky films that you can check out and see if you like.
Yep, and finally we're going to wrap it up with some of the goriest games in the history of video games.
Yes. So if you like gore, if you like scary movies, and if you like blood and frightening games, this is definitely the episode for you.
Alright, so it's that creepy time of year, Halloween's right around the corner, and of course, you know, we're pretty big on video games here, I don't think it's really much of a secret. So we thought we'd go ahead and tell you a couple of our favorite horror games. So Muzz, what's your first pick?
Ooh, I get to go first.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm going to start off with Condemned, Criminal Origins. And this is a game I first played that was a real sleeper for me. I didn't expect it to be scary. I expected kind of an action-y game with maybe some creepiness, but it's a genuinely creepy game throughout. I love the atmosphere. You play as Ethan, and you're basically in the seediest, nastiest part of town you could possibly be in. You've got hobos and crackheads attacking you, around every corner. Lots of gore, but it's still got that first-person shooter feeling, and that current gen feeling that you wanted at the time. It did a lot of things right, and it did very little wrong. Unlike its sequel, which I didn't like as much.
No, I didn't like the sequel as much either.
But
I was just gonna say the atmosphere in that is just so heavy too. Like going into like a dilapidated store chock full of mannequins when it's almost completely dark is it's suffocating almost.
Yeah, and that's actually the point I was just about to make too. It did atmosphere properly in a way that kept you interested, kept you on the edge of your seat, and kept you wondering what was around every corner, every single time you were going somewhere in the game. And it really did it for me.
Right on.
What's yours?
Well, kind of like playing off what you said about like ambience and like just the environment being so suffocating. I'm gonna pick kind of an out there title. Just recently came out, Gone Home. It's an indie game that was developed. And the weird thing about this game is it's barely a game really. Really, what you're playing is more of an interactive story. It's from the first person perspective. You arrive home from Europe. You're a female lead and you're trying to figure out what happened to all of your family members. And the thing that makes it so creepy is the house is completely empty and there's no enemy in the game to speak of, which makes it kind of bizarre in a weird way. But there's a constant thunderstorm going outside and you certainly find some unsettling things in the house. And kind of adding to the horror, or at least I guess to the nostalgia, if you grew up in the 90s at all, is the game takes place like 1995. So you'll find a movie ticket stub to Pulp Fiction. You find just kind of staples of pop culture littered around the house. Like you find, I think I told you earlier, you find VHS tapes where people have recorded like the X-Files and stuff like that. So Gone Home is only about 3 or 4 hours long, but it's an interactive story. It's a very, very kind of poignant story. Not necessarily the most horrific, but the environment you're in can be kind of creepy sometimes. You just explore these people's lives.
In a unique form of gameplay.
Very, very unique.
Like Shattered Memories, Silent Hill Shattered Memories, where you didn't actually have weapons to fight, you just ran. And in this one, you don't actually have a bad guy to fight, you just experience everything around you.
Right, and it's cool to kind of experience games in a new way, where they kind of take the conventional chunks of a game, like, okay, you have to score points, or you have to get to the end, or you have to get cinematics, and they let you experience that in a new way, I guess. So what about you? What's up next?
Well, this game isn't as scary as it is kind of suspenseful and edge of your seat. It's a game that always keeps you guessing, always keeps you wondering, and not just in the game, but in your own reality as you play the game, in its eternal darkness.
Oh yeah.
This is a game that it always has you on your toes, and it's always interesting, and sure, there are a lot of creepy elements to it, And I mean, any game where you're running through a corridor and your head falls off and then your arm falls off and you're going, what's going on, is also kind of scary at the same time. You play as several different characters throughout the game, and it spans centuries, and I believe it's based on a Lovecraft
But they were all
story.
well tied together, as I remember.
Well, it's all one story, and as you play as each of these characters, sometimes you play in the same location hundreds of years apart from another time you played in that location.
Yep.
Actually, through most of the game you do that, and you find just this interesting story that draws you in.
Right.
You want to know what's going to happen next. You want to know how to solve this puzzle and this mystery, and at the same time you're fighting these horrible, like, zombie mummy corpses and demonic things that burst out of human beings, you know. And it's just really interesting. It's really good, and I think it's a great, scary Halloween game.
Oh,
and then not to mention what it does to you while you're playing. Your volume will go down.
Right,
And you'll
that's
say,
what I was going to say.
What's wrong? Yeah.
They take a lot of conventional horror elements, I think, have been a lot of, and they present it in a kind of a shift, like a new way. Like, you've had characters go crazy before, but now it's like they break the fourth wall, and it's like, oh, why did my TV just turn itself off? And that didn't even happen.
Yeah, or why did I go to my inventory and it was empty?
Right, yeah. Like, why is this
And
happening?
that, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. If you're a gamer, that's scary.
It is scary.
You go
It's
to
the
your
most
inventory, it's
terrifying
empty.
thing
Where did my everything go?
I think a lot of GTA Online people can relate to that feeling, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
So what's your next one?
My next pick, I will say Silent Hill 2, which, I mean, I've talked about Silent Hill before. I'm sure I've talked about like, the movie before, how that was not so great. But Silent Hill 2, really, when it came out, I mean, it was certainly a horrific game because, you know, you're again like in the fog-laden town of Silent Hill, of course, and you're kind of exploring the psyche of this character. And the cool thing about the town is it's as much a character itself as you know, the people that you interact with. And because everything you see is kind of a reflection, a manifestation of their psyche, you never know what you're going to get. Monsters will never be conventional because it's whatever, you know, this person has cooked up with, you know, their own demons internally. And it also gave us one of the most iconic bad guys ever in Pyramid Head, you know, a staple of horror, really. And I just thought that was a really great story from beginning to end, you know, even going through the different endings. I thought that game played out really, really well.
And I think the same can be said for the entire series. The franchise itself is just, every game is great. So,
oh, yeah. Well, maybe not that Vita one. It was kind of... and I love the Vita, but
yeah.
hard to get behind.
Well, let's say the original storyline.
Yeah, the original storyline,
The first
sure.
4?
Oh, yeah.
Solid games. Solid
Even
games.
4, which, if you remember, like, it wasn't a Silent Hill game to begin with, and then they kind of shifted it into one. They're like, oh, wait, this, you know,
They
the
made
series
the
makes
transition
money.
well, though.
Yeah.
And, I think I've heard a lot of people say this is one of my favorites in the Silent Hill series. And it did take a new direction and a new point of view, and it did it very well.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Alright, so those are our horror picks. What's creeping you out this Halloween? What should we be investing our time in? Make sure that we just get, you know, the wits totally scared out of us. Let us know.
Definitely leave a comment, and let's get to the next segment.
Yep. Alright, so the Halloween season is upon us, and I was just checking out some really great horror flicks on my Windows phone, the greatest phone on the planet, and I thought I'd give you a couple of my own picks. The first one is a found footage film, Paranormal Activity. Now, that's a fairly new movie, but it's incredibly good, and the thing that makes it so good is the masterful way in which they build suspense in the movie. It doesn't necessarily have the greatest payoff of any horror movie that you've seen, but the performances are solid as a found footage film. It works really, really well. Now, the second film is also a found footage film. The other one that I want to talk about for a second is VHS. Now, VHS is actually on Netflix now. I just caught it the other day for the first time and was actually pretty impressed with it. Pretty much the premise is that a bunch of people kind of go into this house. They're kind of just like regular hooligans, and they've been tasked with retrieving this one videotape. Except when they get there, they find a dead guy and hundreds and hundreds of VHS tapes to choose from. So as they start popping in one VHS tape after another to try to figure out which one is the one that they're after, they actually get to see a bunch of kind of like mini self-contained movies that show just horrific things. Some of them are better than others. The only thing about this is it is kind of hit or miss, but the ones that do hit do it really, really well, and it's definitely creepy. And you kind of just keep watching because you don't know like what's happening to the characters in the main storyline, and you want to know if the next found footage thing that they come up with is going to be better than the last one. It's not the best horror movie in the world, but it was certainly good enough to warrant a sequel, and they did. So, you know, if you like VHS a lot, there's a sequel that you have to look forward to as well.
Alright, so I decided to take a quick break from the Support EA rally that I've been trying to put together and talk to you guys about some great movies you can watch this Halloween season. Now, these are more obscure films, movies maybe you haven't heard of, and that was my goal here. I wanted to give you something new to watch and something cool. So, I'm going to start off with Rambot, Berlin Undead. It's a German zombie movie, and it's very action-oriented. It's really a good flick. You have a good storyline, a unique zombie thriller with just tons of action and zombie gore. It's a good film, and what I really liked about it was I felt like a lot of the character motivation was right. And I have that problem with a lot of movies. Why are you going there? Why are you doing that? You're an idiot. And in this movie I didn't feel that way as much, and I thought it was really solid. You can check that out on Netflix. It's on Instant Queue right now, and it's totally worth watching. The next movie I want to talk about is probably what I think is one of the greatest werewolf movies of all time, and it's called Dog Soldiers. If you haven't seen it and you like werewolf movies, this is the one you want to check out. Basically, we've got a platoon of soldiers who goes out on an exercise, and it turns out they're on an exercise. These guys are bait. They're bait for another platoon trying to capture a werewolf. And it's a great story. The way it plays out, it kind of has some elements from other horror movies, like your Night of the Living Dead, trapped in a place trying to fight off the hordes of werewolves. It's got just a lot of really great dialogue. It's fun, it's funny, it's scary, and it's action-packed. And if you can get your hands on it, I definitely recommend checking it out. Another good thing about it is it has a lot of references that are in homage to other films. You'll see a Matrix reference, you'll see Bruce Campbell references in it, you'll get a Bridge Over the River Kwai reference. It does a lot to kind of just shout out to those other films, but it does it in a way that's really low key. And it makes it kind of fun to look out for those things. If you get the chance, check out Dog Soldiers. You will not regret it.
Okay, so I'm going to make this short and sweet. I really want to get back to YouTube and watch real people get hurt. Speaking of people getting hurt, I'm going to talk about Hostel. It's about a group of young dudes that travel Europe and they encounter a paid-for-torture program, as you would say, I guess. And it's very gory, very intense scenes, and if you don't have a strong stomach, I wouldn't suggest watching it. But it is a scary flick, it's intense, so check it out. Second movie I'm going to talk about is The Conjuring. The Conjuring is fairly new, but it's an exorcism type of movie, and for me it brought back a feeling that I haven't had since I was like 8 years old watching a scary movie. It was creepy, intense, I mean everything that you want in a nice spooky film. So if you're looking to revisit those feelings that you had as a kid watching a horror movie, this is for you. I can personally tell you, after I watched it, I turned the lights on at home and it took me a while to get to sleep.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about some games that are pretty gory. They don't necessarily have to be scary games. They don't, have to be creepy games. Just games that include a lot of blood, a lot of guts, and just
Oh yeah.
yeah, images of gore in general.
Buckets of blood is the order of the day.
Right. So, what's your first one?
Okay, my first one is actually, I'm going to step back to, I think it was probably like 2004, somewhere in there. The original Punisher game, which actually came out on the PS2 and the Xbox, I actually picked up a demo for this game. I was super excited because the demo was just chock full of violence, like just gratuitously so. And if it wasn't bad enough that you could take people and like toss them in furnaces, or take a bad guy and like hold his face to a grinder and watch it peel away very dramatically, then you could go into a rage mode where inexplicably Punisher was so strong, he was just literally ripping people apart with his bare hands, like completely unrealistic for Frank Castle, but incredibly satisfying.
Sure.
And then I go to buy the actual retail game, and at this point they've censored it tremendously. It's like someone was like, we can't put this out, and it's one of the only games I got away with returning after I'd opened it. Took it back to GameStop, and I was like, I don't want this. And they were like, why? And I was like, because they neutered it. So that was an incredibly bloody game, or it would have been an incredibly bloody game.
Well, you can always play the demo, I guess.
Yeah, I'll see if I can dig up that demo and just play it over and over on my original Xbox. What about you?
First game I'll talk about is Dead Space, the original Dead Space. And I know everyone's already played it, so it's probably nothing new to a lot of you, but if you haven't played it, check it out, especially if this is what you're looking for. It's just filled with grotesque images of body parts and, and limbs and dead people hanging. I mean, the story aside, the story is great, and the game was well executed, but the atmosphere is what really made it, and the atmosphere itself is built of gore.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite parts of that game, I like they make this kind of a core mechanic, but any of the spacewalk sequences, because it's like they remove your ability to hear because you're in the vacuum of space, and you still have to contend with these horrific things, and you're just like, okay, I'm disoriented, and I still have to deal with these just horrific creatures.
Yeah. And everywhere you go, it's like it's almost like these quasi-religious figures pinned up to walls and laying on tables, and it's eerie as you go through. It offers you everything. In this case, it is scary, and it's gory.
Oh, yeah.
And it did something for its time that even Resident Evil wasn't doing.
Right.
You know, and it did it right. And that was always my big thing. Resident Evil 5 had come out 6 months after Dead Space.
Oh, yeah.
And wasn't as good.
Yeah, that's one more thing. God, Dead Space was so good. Like, I love that the HUD was almost non-existent. Like, you got all your information just from Isaac's suit, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It just worked together so well.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal franchise, but that one in particular, that was the one. It set the bar, and it laid the groundwork for something beautiful.
Right.
So, what's your next one?
My next one is actually an old arcade game. I can't remember if I've talked about this before, but Time Killers really deserves mention here. Talk about ludicrously over the top, and even way before Mortal Kombat came on the scene, there's this arcade machine, Time Killers, where it's just your basic tournament fighter, you're fighting, 2D, like, seeing people go head to head. But the moves were so over the top and grandiose, it was disgusting. Like, you could cut someone's head off the second a match started, like, and it was just over. Yeah. And you would see people spam this move at my local Pizza Hut when they were playing, like, little inexperienced kids would be like, I want to play Time Killers. Boom, over, you just lost your quarter. Back of the line, like... And like, you could cut off arms and legs, and people would keep fighting. Like, if you cut off someone's legs, like, if you got close enough, they just start clobbering you, like, at knee level. So, really just disturbing stuff, I guess, for that era. So, Time Killers, check it out.
So my next one that just is over the top gore, but not a scary game at all.
Yep.
No More Heroes. And this is an outstanding game. Your main character is Travis Touchdown. He's your basic otaku type dude. He's into video games. He can't afford to buy his video games anymore. He won this beam katana online in an auction, and he says, I guess I'll become an assassin so I can buy video games, And it's this weird story, and you have this whole explorable city. You can ride around on his bike and everything, but then you get into these missions. And you got, what I love about it and what the parents hated about it was that you simulate the moves, and you bring your hands down and he cuts someone in half. And I mean, we're talking gallons of blood from one human being. It just bursts out of them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so fun to play, and it's just such a great game.
Thinking back on that game, because I remember, because it was one of the first games for the Wii I was really excited about getting, it predated the Scott Pilgrim movie, but I feel like there's a lot of similarities visually between, like, how Scott Pilgrim would just beat people and they would burst into coins, because you got a little bit of that with Travis.
Yeah. And it made you feel all these little connections, particularly to, like, 8-bit video games and 16-bit video games. It made you feel connected, like, this guy's a gamer. I'm a gamer. I'm Travis Touchdown. And it's a lot of fun to play. And in terms of gory games, there aren't a lot that offer that kind of combination. And that was, you're right, a time for the Wii, for me, that said, oh, look, an adult game. That Mad World came out, and, a few others. And Mad World also incredibly gory, but nothing to me on the Wii was just as fun and kind of sick as No More Heroes was. So if you haven't played that one, that's a must own. I would even say it's worth buying a Wii, or you can play it on your Wii U, but just to play that game.
It was solid. I mean, one of the more solid action titles for the Wii, I'd say. Real quick, honorable mention. Now, like that other guy that we got tied up in the back.
I've got a knife. Hold on.
You had a knife this whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. Hands will be good.
Here, turn.
Like a lamer version of me. He already talked about this once, but still bears mention here. Manhunt is still just like way up there for gory, just completely inappropriate things. Like, I'm surprised that game even made it out of the gate. Really.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of honorable mentions. Fallout 3, super gory. Mad World is on here. Gears of War, super. The first time you took that chainsaw to someone you knew. Dead Rising, super gory. Loaded and Smash TV for some old school games. Doom, Mortal Kombat, which everyone talks about. There are a lot of great gory games, but these ones we talked about, those are some of, I think, our absolute favorites.
Some of the finest.
Yeah.
Alright, everybody, that's all we've got for Evil NerdKO. So what are you going to do with the rest of your evening?
Oh, man. I mean, we had to get this out of the way, but I think next I'm going to call up some friends at EA. I've made some connections since I've been here, and we're going to talk about this awesome new console. You are going to be so amped. After Microsoft messed up their new console by changing and doing that whole 180, I decided to go to EA. We're going to push a system that's completely digitally distributed, DRM laden. It's going to be awesome for the developers, and it's going to make tons of money. I can't wait to get started. What are you going to do?
I'm just going to go to what I do every Saturday night, just go to an anti-Apple demonstration in Redmond.
Of course.
You know, pray to the gods of Microsoft, because that's what I'm all about.
Absolutely.
So.
Burn some Apple effigies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
What's wrong with you? Why do you look kind of glitchy and weird?
You too. That's
Isn't supposed to have.
What's going on? Don't
Wow.
That was something else.
That was something else. I'm glad we could finally get through that again. I don't know how they keep coming back. Why do you still have one of these devices?
Well, I made the portable. I took the first one apart. Hey, you're lucky I had this.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had it.
Come on.
So. Alright, well, thanks for watching, I guess, even though it wasn't probably what you guys were expecting, but we're glad we could free you from the clutches of evil going forward, I guess. So.
Yeah, and I guess I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's the last you'll be seeing of them. And, yeah, so...
Yeah, just, I guess still don't forget to subscribe. Check out youtube.com/geekspodcast for myself and youtube.com/L1games for Muzz. And I guess that's all we got this week.
Let's get out of here, man. I'm done.
I've
This has
had
been a long
enough.
night.
Just no more.
Wow. You okay? I think that's perfect. I don't think we need to do anything else.